This is Revelations, oh, it's the show where the truth unfolds and the facts will flow. Mysteries, secrets, stories untold. This is Revelations, worth more than gold. This is Revelations, oh, it's the show where the truth unfolds and the facts will flow. Mysteries, secrets, stories untold. This is Revelations, worth more than gold. This is Revelations, oh, worth more than gold. This is Revelations with more than gold.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 4 of Lisa Marie's Revelations, going from her words in her book with Riley, From Here to the Great Unknown. As I said, this is part 4. We're on chapter 4, where she's going to be writing about and talking about Danny Keough. So that's where we left, and that's where I'm going to begin. Know that this show is for entertainment purposes only, okay, guys? I'm not reading the book word for word. I'm giving you the tidbits and what I think about it, okay? But it's a real great thing that we have her words, that we can talk about it, and we can, as a Elvis family, we can try to understand her a little bit better. This book kind of gives us the opportunity to realize, if we haven't already, that Lisa Marie was a human being. She had feelings, she had dreams, she had people cut her down, she had hurt, and we're here to talk about it, okay, guys? So this is part 4 for Danny of the book. And the chapter is called There's a Bluebird in My Heart. So here we go. Excuse me. She states that she heard a lot about Danny Keough. She said he was 21 years old when she met him, and she had just turned 17. So they're 3 years apart. No, excuse me, I'm sorry, 4 years apart. All right. She said that he was in LA, but he's from Oregon. He was a bass player in a band named D-Bat, and they used to play small gigs around town in LA. She said that they were all really cute in the band, and they had a following, and all the girls were in love with Danny. She said they were in love. She said that they were also in love with the lead singer too, a guy named Alex. But Alex was not as cool or rugged as Danny. She said, we used to tease Alex because he would constantly be checking his own reflection in the back of spoons. She said, I heard later that all the guys in D-Bat had a crush on me, but I wasn't paying attention. I've always been really stupid about stuff like that. I don't assume. I had zero self-confidence back then, and as soon as I heard someone was a heartbreaker or a ladies' man or womanizer, I put my guard up. I was already guarded, but I put up with the extra layer if I felt like someone was an asshole, especially after what happened with the older boyfriend who showed the photos. I had those defenses, but I could also be really silly like a schoolgirl. I was still living in the celebrity center, though I was also transitioning to living back with my mother. I threw a birthday party for myself at the Rose Garden Cafe out in the back of the center, and that was the first time I was in the same room with Danny. Our first interaction was just a brief drive-by. I forgot about it. After a week, I had fully moved back into my mom's house. and all those same people from the Rose Garden party were going to dinner at the Mustache Cafe in Melrose. Danny was there, and he was making those comments that were bugging me. I thought he was arrogant and self-confident. I could tell I annoyed him. That night, we all ended up at a party in the Hollywood Hills. When the birthday cake came out, in front of everybody, I smeared some icing on him, and he took some, and he put it on my cheek. Then he licked it off. I was freaked out. I found out later he was on a mission. I told him he wasn't boyfriend material, and that made him want to pursue me. I was less interested, and he seemed, the more I found myself smitten with him. I was with a friend who was living with me at my mom's house. She walked out of the party at heels ahead of me. I went out to look for her and caught her planting a kiss on Danny. He pushed her away. I could tell they were having words. I thought to myself, Danny, you're such a pig. A couple of weeks later, he told me that my friend had totally blindsided him, probably doing it on purpose, because she knew I would be coming out to look for her. Danny was mortified. Sounds to me, guys, with all of this, because she had her heart broken when she was so young with that man that was 24 that she lost her virginity with. He was a womanizer and a heartbreaker. So she knew to be turned off by guys like that were giving her that vibe, because she knew that men like that would just want one thing, would be to use her. I'm going to change my glasses out, guys. I need my reading glasses on for this. Hold on a second. Give me a second. It's hard to read with my other glasses on, so I'm going to do my reading glasses. Okay. So here's the next part. I was never someone who had a propensity for quick relationships or one-night stands. If I'm into someone, I'm into someone. If I'm not, I'm not, hot or cold. I drove Danny home to his place. I remember going into his room, and we were hanging out, talking, and I spent the night there. Nothing happened. We didn't have sex or anything. I just laid with him, and we were sort of making out and talking. I stayed until the wee hours of the morning. Then I drove home. Danny and I solidified into a relationship. I was still being really careful. He left a trail of heartbroken girls, and he always broke up with the women, and they stay in love with him. His longest relationship was 6 weeks. I was trying to turn my life around, seriously, buckling down, starting to pull my shit together. I hadn't been a drug addict. I had just been super curious and would do whatever came along. It was really just rebellion. So she's saying all her troubles with drugs and the sort was her type of rebelling against her mother, because she didn't understand what life her mother was leading. I mean, think about what we went through so far. She just had Michael Edwards in their life for all those years, and he did stuff to Lisa, and Prissy just continued to let it happen. Plus, Prissy was partying with this guy, so as she said, cocaine was around her. So she wanted to rebel, so she did all of this, to get back at Priscilla. I mean, that's what I've got out of the book so far, guys. But anyways, she said, I wanted to know what the F I was doing here. I wanted to know about life. I wanted to know about people. I didn't want the F around anymore. She didn't want to mess around anymore. She was tired of the drugs, of the running around. She wanted to settle down, guys. She was ready to to be level-minded. But I wasn't just going to get a job and put food on the table and be content, she said. I needed answers. So she's trying to live like that because, Elvis did the same thing. He was like, why am I here? Why did God pluck me out of all these people to be special like this? Why? Why me, Lord? Why? Lisa's finally feeling this too. It's a very big coincidence with her dad. It really is. Here we go. I found Danny's confidence and his cockiness attractive. I tend to be attracted to strong alpha males. I probably get that from my dad. My father was very much the alpha. I'm a total daddy's girl. So her father, as we know, Elvis was the ultimate alpha male. And when he passed, she was longing for that. So of course she's going to be attracted to alpha males, but they have to be the right one, and this Danny really caught her eye big time. Danny and I lasted about 4 months initially. It was definitely the longest he'd ever had, but I worried that Danny had a wandering eye. He could be a slippery SOB, hard to keep a hold of. I was completely head over heels in love with him. But he got a crush on some Italian girl who didn't speak any English and had hairy armpits. And we were kind of over after that. I always felt like I was hanging on to him. After we broke up, I was heartbroken for 2 years, stuck on him, stuck and obsessed. I was one of those girls. I didn't want anybody to know it, but I was obsessed with him. The Italian girl had been a temporary thing, but I was devastated. You could not mop me up off the floor. Meanwhile, I would date other uninteresting time passers. I was actually in love with Danny, but I was still holding a torch for him. I didn't know what I wanted, except I wanted to be with Danny. And I knew that I needed to have children with Danny too. I felt like I was supposed to have children. I somehow knew that he would always be connected. That we would always be connected. That it would always be okay. That it would never be a bad situation for a child. Danny moved away from LA for a while, and whenever he came back, my antennas would be trained on him. I'd see him at parties, and it would destroy me, especially if he showed up with a girl. I couldn't tell what he was thinking about me. It was cat and mouse for a while. I would watch Danny see me with a guy, and his whole disposition would change. He'd be visibly bummed. His energy would drop. But I still didn't think he really gave a crap. I showed up at his place one day, and we sat on the curb outside and talked. I said, "This is really eating me up. So let's just talk about how we actually feel. No games." We were honest with each other, and then a couple of weeks later, we went on a date to the MTV Music Awards. Danny almost got arrested that night. At one point, a guy, a paparazzo, it turned out, came charging at us in the dark, and Danny hit him, and the guy fell over one of those sawhorse barriers. We had to give People magazine a photo so that the photographer wouldn't press charges. They paid $70,000 for it. We didn't think being famous was cool. We didn't really hang out with other celebrities. We were low-key and unextravagant. I had to downplay things for Danny because he was so proud, and I didn't want to scare him off. He would work odd jobs, painting, roofing, doing construction, and play whatever gigs he got. I didn't live like a princess either. My first car was a Toyota Celica Supra. Though there was one night in the China Club when I was sitting with my friends in a booth and Rick James jump landed right next to me. Rick and I had a run into each other a couple of times before, and he just seemed so broken. He'd say, ugh, I'm not doing so good, or I'm trying to quit and I'm trying to get my life together. I had a soft spot for him. I wanted to fix him. That night, Rick was high, and Danny saw him getting physically too close to me and shook his head at Rick. Rick got up and jumped through the air like a wild animal to attack Danny. Luckily, the bouncer saw it and literally grabbed Rick in midair and threw him out of the club. And I've got to say, guys, I don't know if her and Rick James had a relationship prior or not. He is a little older than her. If you guys don't know who he is, he's a singer back in the day. He does that song Brick House. It seems like someone I wouldn't think she would be interested in. So I don't know. You guys tell me in the comment section below. I mean, maybe they were just real good friends. I'm not sure. But that's the part of this anyway. She also said around that time she got herself a job with Jerry Schilling as his assistant. By then, Jerry was on the board of Elvis Presley Enterprises, and my mom would have me go to the meetings. I didn't know what the F I was supposed to be doing, so I just sat and listened. My mom was at the helm and wanted me to get trained up for when I took over after I turned 25. One day I made the mistake of sitting at the head of the table at the board meeting. My mom came in and said, "Don't you ever sit in my seat at the head of the table. Who do you think you are? This is my business. I'm the one who opened Graceland. You can't just come in and sit there like you're something." I'm sorry, guys, but if I was Lisa, I would have got up and probably smacked her in the face and walked out the room and say, "Hey, this is mine. You're just holding it for me until I'm 21. So have fun sweeping up the dust." But that's my mouth. She was always very, it seems to me with what I've read so far, she didn't really fight with her mother. She didn't really raise her voice to her mother. She actually just let what her mother do. But that's what happened, guys. I cannot believe Chrissy Pants did that to Lisa. If anything, Lisa would be owning it. We all know what happened when Lisa turned 25, though. She didn't take the responsibility of it. But it's probably because of how her mother treated her right here in the book. You know, how would you want to take responsibility? Why would you want to take responsibility for something when you're 25 when your mother treats you like this when you're trying to learn the business? I don't know, guys. Anyways, she said funny stuff happened in a short time working for Jerry Schilling. He was managing Jerry Lee Lewis then, and Lewis was the worst possible person to try to manage. Well, there's another rebel right there, guys. But Lewis loved me, was always great with me. One day I was flying back from Memphis to LA and I happened to sit next to Jerry Lee. When we landed, the office got a message to me on the plane that said, "Don't get off. Don't get his luggage. There are feds waiting for him at the gate." Jerry Lee had a briefcase. I presumed it was filled with drugs, Demerol. So instead of getting the bag, Jerry Lee and I booked out of the airport, the two of us running like fugitives. I'm not really a phone person. The worst thing you can do is make me answer the phone. I used to have to answer the phone for Jerry Schilling. He fired me after about 6 months. So she was around Jerry Lee Lewis. I wonder what Jerry Lee Lewis thought of Elvis's daughter. The story between Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley throughout the years was so funny. There's lots of incidences that happened between old Jerry Lee and Elvis, and it would be very interesting. I wish somebody could have asked him before he died, What was it like, Lisa, being with you for Jerry Schilling? I wish somebody would have asked him that before he passed. Anyways, I'm going to keep going, guys. Danny and I stayed together for a year. I was 19. The year that Danny and I were together, I got pregnant, but it wasn't the first time I got pregnant by him. The first time I got pregnant, I didn't know it. During the first 4 months we dated, I had ended up in the ER with horrible pains. They had to rush me into surgery. The doctors thought it was my appendix. When I came to, I had an ectopic pregnancy. While they were in there, they took my appendix out too. But I was wondering, if it wasn't appendicitis and it was a non-viable pregnancy, why didn't they just give her a D&C and keep her appendix? Why did they take her appendix too? Did she really have both? Because that part I really didn't understand. But that's sad. Then she goes on, I had never gotten pregnant with any other person, which is fascinating because I'd been equally as sloppy not using birth control. She said, but with Danny, it happened that first time, and then it happened again when they got back together. The second time, I didn't know what to do, and neither did Danny. I ended up having an abortion, and it was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my whole life. I was devastated. I did it, and we both cried. We were both destroyed, and not long after that, we fell apart and broke up. I couldn't live with myself. Danny went off to join a band on a cruise ship, and I went and traveled through Europe for a couple of months. I could not believe that I had an abortion. I was so upset with myself. So she had a plan. She planned and plotted and schemed and pinpointed exactly when she was supposed to be ovulating. She also wanted to make it happen. She said to herself it was a group effort. She purposely planned a trip to see Danny on a ship. Danny had no idea of my plan, but I didn't really care anymore what he thought about it. I didn't care if he wanted to be a part of it or not. I felt that I had to redeem to make amends because I still couldn't believe I had had an abortion. I'm going to have this child. There is a child that I need to be having. I would be talking to the lost child saying, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I effing did that. Please forgive me and stay with me until I get pregnant again. So she maybe thought that she was feeling very guilty about having this abortion so bad that she got herself pregnant again purposely because she thought to herself that whatever soul that she had aborted prior would possibly be the same soul of the child if she gets pregnant again. I guess that's how she's trying to put it here, guys, but she felt so guilty that this was her plan. She said that she left Aruba and waited 2 weeks after she met Danny on this overnight trip. And she did a pregnancy test. And she calls Danny up and says, I'm pregnant. Danny knew he had to marry her. And Lisa trapped him. She didn't really mean to, she says in the book, but she really did. So she trapped Danny to, have a kid, get married, settle down. Maybe he just was so immature he needed a push. I don't know, but she admits it, that she trapped Danny. Here she goes on. My mom wasn't thrilled. To her, Danny was just a really good-looking, wild musician with no real job and no real prospects. She told me I needed somebody more distinguished, more established. One day at her house, her latest boyfriend, Michael Edwards, was out of the picture by then. So when she says her latest boyfriend, I would have to think it would be Marco Garibaldi Garcia, because that's the next guy in her life. She had a son with him, right? It's around the same time frame. So this part of the book, she's talking about Marco. So her not saying his name is, I don't know if that has anything to do with maybe Marco suing her later on, or maybe they had some kind of deal where she's not supposed to mention his name. But just know this boyfriend she's mentioning right now is Marco Garibaldi Garcia. Okay? But anyways, this new boyfriend of her mother took Danny down to the tennis court. And when they got back, Danny was pale. Nobody knew what the hell that boyfriend really said. He was always busy having meetings, but no one ever knew what he was meeting about. So she says here that he acted important, but he wasn't really that important. Marco, right? The fraud that got with Prissy Pants and got her pregnant with Navarone Provolone. That's who she's talking about. But anyways, I digress. That day at the tennis court, she said Prissy's new boyfriend told Danny that Lisa would throw him out when she was done with him. That he would lose all of his dreams and goals because this thing was so much bigger than him. That Lisa didn't care about him or love him. The boyfriend said that it wasn't love, it was ownership. Seems to me that Prissy Pants sicked Marco on Danny to scare him into dumping Lisa when she was pregnant with Riley. That's what it sounds like to me, guys. You tell me in the comment section below. But that's what I'm getting from it. She says here that it felt like me and Danny against everybody. But I stayed pregnant, and we got married at the Celebrity Center with just my mom, a minister, and 5 close friends in attendance. 6 months later, we had a big wedding reception at the Bel Air Country Club. I'm kind of wondering what kind of minister to proceed a wedding would be like in Scientology. I'm just curious. Anyways, Lisa said that she was very pregnant by then. I was struggling with the baby weight and getting nailed in the press for it. Back then, they called you fat when you were pregnant. She said the paparazzi would not leave her alone. She says, I just couldn't bear it. I was being harassed constantly. Danny and I got our first house. She said it was a regular house in the valley. They were preparing to have their baby, but the pressure was the worst that she had ever known, she said. She also said the police helped them get in and out of the hospital when it was time to have Riley. That it was also stressful trying to deliver a child, having to post security and police officers on the floor. But eventually, Riley comes into the world, and Riley said it was Priscilla who suggested that Riley be named after her father, Danny, and they still couldn't come up with a name, so the hospital decided to name her Danielle. Okay, but she doesn't use Danielle, she uses Riley. That's her stage name. Anyways, more of Lisa's words. I had a crash course in being a mom. I was married at 20, a mother at 21, similar to my own mother. But when Riley was born, everybody was happy. She was such a special beacon, a unique spirit, a light in the universe. I fell in love with being a mom. I realized I had been called to care for something else. Being a mom was everything to me. I was going to do whatever I could possibly do to protect her and raise her. That thing where you either do what your parents did or you do the exact opposite of what was done to you. I did the opposite, meaning she was more of a mom and knew it was more of a calling than her own mother had. And we already experienced this in her lifetime with the way that she raised her kids compared to how Prissy Pants raised Lisa. Lisa was determined that she was not going to raise her kids the way she was raised by her mother. She was determined to not live the same way that Prissy did. She was determined to be a real mom to her kids. She didn't want to be like her own mother. Excuse me. So that's obvious. We already knew that. Anyway, Danny got into a band called 10-Inch Men, and they started playing gigs around the town. She developed a bit of a crush on the lead singer, and it became an issue in our marriage. Drunk one night, the singer said to me, "You know, if it weren't for Danny, I think you and I'd be perfect together." I told Danny what he said. I was always very honest with him. It made Danny absolutely crazy, and it broke up the band. Danny started doing mushrooms, smoking weed, and it was causing huge fights between us because I had become totally anti-drug by that point. But mostly, we had gotten our crap together. We were just like a normal married couple. We were having parties and barbecues with our family. I loved being a mom so much that I wanted another child. I wanted a boy so badly. My mom had given me advice on how to have a boy or a girl. Basically, she said that boy sperm gets there quicker than girl sperm, but dies off faster. So if you want a boy, you have to have sex just before the start of your ovulation to get the first sperm only. Priscilla gave Lisa that advice. I don't really think that's true, guys. You tell me in the comment section below if this advice that she gave Lisa is true, because I never heard such a thing in my whole entire life. But I'm starting to realize that Lisa, even though Lisa didn't get along with her mother very much, Lisa listened to her mother often. But anyways, tell me if you think that's true. So just like when I planned that trip to get pregnant for the first time, I was determined to have a boy this time, and I had to plan it, which meant we only had a certain window. Then I got pregnant. We went to Florida and rented a home there. It was very easy pregnancy. I was working out a lot at the time, so I was in really good shape. I targeted an increase of exactly 26 pounds, which is what I needed to have a healthy baby. And sure enough, I only gained 26 pounds, and it was just my belly, nowhere else. So the first time that the second time she got pregnant with Danny's kid, with Riley, she gained so much weight that the paparazzi personally crucified her by calling her fat all the time. So it really didn't help her self-esteem, which is very sad because a lot of pregnant women go through that. I remember me being pregnant with my first son, my only son. I gained almost 100 pounds, guys. But in my argument, I mean, I lost all the weight, but in my defense, the only reason why I gained almost 100 pounds is because I was a much older mom to be, I was almost 40 years old. So I was bedridden a lot of my pregnancy and I wasn't allowed to do much. So I just could eat, read books, and watch TV, lay in bed. I wasn't allowed to do much. She was a young mom, but she gained a lot of weight, but it made her feel bad when the paparazzi was calling her fat and stuff. So she was determined this time around when she got pregnant with Benjamin that she wasn't going to gain that much. And it's perfectly healthy to only gain about 25, 30 pounds with a pregnancy. So she did good this time. She also said that her water broke. They drove to Tampa and they had their son Ben naturally. We lived in Florida for about a year and a half and things were great. We both were kind of tamed at that point. It felt settled. But then I started taking vocal lessons. I had wanted to sing my whole life, but I just hadn't. I took the lessons just to warm up my voice. But one day I told my teacher to turn around and not look at me. I said, just listen. If I have a shot at this, or if you think that there's anything in me whatsoever that I should pursue this, let me know. If not, then we'll act like this never happened. I sang a verse and a chorus of an Aretha Franklin song, Baby, I Love You. When the woman turned back around, she seemed genuinely mind blown. She made her husband and some other people come in, and then she made me do it again. I thought, wow, maybe I can do this. I told Danny I wanted him to produce this track for me. I'll either do this and it's going to work out, or it's going to be the biggest embarrassment of my life, and we'll just pretend like it didn't happen. Danny produced Baby I Love You at the legendary One on One studio in LA. I took the recording around to my family. Everybody's jaw dropped. They couldn't believe it was my voice. So Danny and I started writing music together, and I made a demo tape. And then word got out somehow. And that's when Prince, Michael Jackson, everybody started swarming in. That demo tape changed our lives forever. So that's part 4 of Lisa Marie Revelations. I'm learning a lot of things I didn't know before. I also am reading things that I have known before. I didn't know, let's get my glasses off. I didn't know that she had lost a baby, and I didn't know that she had an abortion before getting pregnant with Riley. I didn't know that. Says here she loved Danny so much, and she was so attracted to his alpha male ways because it reminded her of her father, because he was also alpha male. We all know Elvis was very alpha male. We also know and learned, which I didn't know this, that Lisa Marie trapped Danny Keough into settling down and marrying her by getting pregnant and planning to get pregnant and scheming to get pregnant. I kind of wish I knew what Danny thought of this chapter in general. I would have really liked to know. Maybe one day we might. But he's a very low-key type of guy. He don't like to be interviewed or anything. If we know anything, it'll be if Riley brings it out. But wow. I mean, just to know that you were trapped into marrying in a relationship-wise. But I really don't think after that he didn't love her. I really do. They were with each other her whole life. He was there the day she died, even though she divorced him in the 90s and married other men. Danny was always a constant in her life. So it shows to me they really had great love for one another, but there had to be issues. And I think that that's going to be in the rest of the book eventually. And I'll get that to you guys. We will talk about it eventually with the chapters we go through. But very interesting. Very interesting. It's also interesting. I didn't even know that she either had a relationship with in some way or she was friends with Rick James. That, wow, that's all I have to say. Part 5 will be next week, and it's called Mimi. And I believe it's going to be covering Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie's marriage and love. So that's next week, guys. So stick with me, and we'll have a place where we can talk about this book chapter by chapter like we're doing now. Let me know in the comment section below, guys, what you think of this chapter. And let me know, guys, because that's what this is for. This is a place for us to be one big Elvis Lisa family so we can discuss what her life was like, what we go through when we read this book. But it's been very enlightening so far, guys. And I cannot wait to get to chapter 5 with you next week. All right, guys. Know that I'll be live on Friday, spilling the Presley tea, okay? And that will be a very interesting episode. Don't miss it. Okay, guys? And I hope you have a great rest of the week. Just know that I am here for each and every one of you guys. I'm definitely here for Elvis and Lisa. And I just love each and every one of you guys. I do. Each and every one of you. I love you guys. You could have went to any Elvis channel for your information from Here to the Great Unknown, Lisa Marie's book, but you didn't. You came to mine, and for that, I love each and every one of you for it. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. And we're going to finish this. Okay, guys? Well, I got to go. I got to get up and go to work in the morning really early. And just know this is the highlight of my week with you guys. So anyways, TCBTLC. God bless you all. And you know what? I'll see you on the other side. Bye, everybody. I'll see you Friday night.